Welcome back to the channel today, guys. And is it me? Or did Trigun end kind of wild today with how the episode ended? Because the repercussions of this scene right here is probably going to be felt throughout the rest of the series. Like, this is a big deal. Very eye-opening scene. But to be honest with you guys, it makes total sense when you really sit down and think about it. Exactly why Knives and everyone wants all these plants. Now that we know that they're literal living beings, it makes far more sense. And I'm really, really interested to see where we go from here. I don't remember this. I don't remember this stuff from the original. My memory is not that good, apparently. But let's just get straight into it today and talk about Trigun Stampede episode 7 today, because this shit felt like a Mission Impossible episode. So our episode begins today with literally everything hitting the fan, as we see the Bad Lads gang are now invading the ship, and things really couldn't get worse with Vash, Wolfwood, Livio, Bluesummers, all of them. There's a lot going on right now. As we see Wolfwood trying to clear the gang off the ship, because they don't have the time for this nonsense, but we see that they're busting in through windows on the lower half of the ship, and they're getting inside. And to make matters worse, Livio has regained consciousness and he charges at Vash until Wolfwood stops him and says, "Move it, Needle Noggin. If you stay here, we're literally just gonna die together." As Vash decides to run, but he tells Wolfwood, "Alright, fine, but I'll be right back." As Wolfwood says, "That idiot just doesn't listen, but neither do you, Livio." As Wolfwood actually starts unloading into him and hits him, but we see the medicine is taking effect and he heals instantly. And as they keep fighting, Wolfwood is constantly hitting him with bullets, but he keeps healing them off one after another. Livio is almost like a walking corpse at this point. As Wolfwood tells himself, "This is my responsibility, so I'll handle it. I'll kill you myself." But we'll come back to this scene, because it's here we're going to transition to the Bad Lads gang invading the ship, literally gunning down all the security guards. And who should they bring along with them? But Meryl and Roberto, of course. Now they have their own crew of people to take awesome pictures of them as they're raiding and pillaging. How nice. As they're just like, "Man, I can't believe we're going to be on the cover of an outlaw magazine. Yeehaw! Man, we've come so far, Skipper." As Meryl's just like, "Roberto, please do something about this." And he's like, "Don't look at me. You're the one that brought us back here." But it's here all of a sudden. We hear the sound of some serious ass kicking as we see that Vash is here and he's just beating these guys by hand. It's kind of wild. As he says, "What are you two doing here?" As Meryl's just like, "Oh, gee, I wonder. We weren't chasing after you or anything. No, perish the thought." But it's here as if to interrupt their little reunion. We see more of the gang coming as Vash is like, "Alright, I'm gonna handle these guys. Sorry. I'm in a hurry." As this man just does a kung fu move. And I like how he's just beating people with his gun, by the way. He's not shooting. He's just beating people over the head with it like it's a freaking club. Great use for a gun. I guess, to be fair, we're not going to have the issue we had in episode 1 where he has no bullets that way. And it's here as they're watching this go on, Meryl and Roberto just say, "Who is Vash really?" Meryl is stunned. As Roberto tells her he's not human, that's for sure. As we see, he took out the whole gang there in seconds with his bare hands. And it's here as we transition back to Livio and Wolfwood. These two are just throwing hands with each other. They're just flat out brawling as they're beating the hell out of each other. And then they just start unloading into each other. It's kind of wild. They're both getting torn up by bullets, blood flying everywhere, as the security guards are just watching. Like, these guys are monsters. And they actually run off. Cowards. And it's here as they're both healing from all their wounds for a second. We just hear Livio say, "I have to catch up." As we see all the grueling, torturous experimentation he went under as well, just so he could be with Wolfwood again. As Wolfwood says, "Livio, you were always following me around. And as we get a flashback of their past, Wolfwood tells him, "You need to stop chasing after me now. Things would have been better off without you around." And I don't even think he believes what he's saying right now. As Wolfwood puts the barrel of his gun in his face and tells him, "Wait for me in hell." And right before he's about to pull the trigger, we see his gun get shot, his trajectory moves out the way, and he actually hits the insect that BZ has been watching them with, as we see it was Vash that stopped him from killing Livio. As Wolfwood asks him, "Why the hell did you come back?" As Vash tells him, "He's important to you, right?" "I'll help," but Wolfwood tells him, "If I could have done it, I would have by now." As Vash tells him, "You gotta bring back his real self. There has to be something he'd never forget." And as Livio sends Vash flying, Wolfwood notices the way that he loads up his gun. And in that moment, he has a flashback to his past again. As we see that when they were kids, he would do that exact same trick with his lighter, and how Livio was always enthralled by it. And it's here as Wolfwood takes out a cigarette and lights it in the exact same way again. He says, "Something he'd never forget about, huh?" As he charges at Livio, getting shot all to hell in the process, as we see that Marilyn Roberto comes onto the scene, as he says, "This ends now," as he shoots him in the machine part of his head and grabs his guns. As Wolfwood looks at him and tells him, "You've always been like this. Whenever something bad happens, you hide under the blankets." And as Livio smells the cigarette smoke one more time, he's reminded immediately of Wolfwood. As he says, "Nico." But right as you think we're going to have a good moment for once, reality comes bursting onto the scene. As Livio gets these intense flashbacks as he hears, "Remember this. Remember who you are. Kill all who stand in our way." Based on absolute veneration, fueled by complete self-sacrifice. The perfect executioner. We are the Eye of Michael. As we see that Livio's clutching his head, clearly trying to fight the brain control that he's been put under his whole life. As we see him put the gun to his temple and shoot himself in the head. As we see he falls over the side of the ship. And Wolfwood is devastated, obviously. Because you know, guys, out in the Badlands, there really aren't happy endings. And it's here as we transition back to Zaze and Bluesummers. Zaze asks him, "Is this what you wanted?" As Bluesummers says, "Lack of faith is a real problem. There's no need for emotion. Without his little brother, without the orphanage, he can be the perfect believer." As Zaze says, "So that's why you sent his brother in, huh? That's pretty twisted." As Bluesummers says, "I just want to spread the good word. That's all." Why is that so hard for people to understand? As he says, "I've had enough. I'll take the orphanage out by force." With his brother and the orphanage gone, I'm sure he'll change his mind. And as we see the giant cannon moving on top of the ship, Bluesummers says, "This is my version of love." And it's here in a matter of seconds. The situation goes from 100 to 1,000. As we just hear, "That's an ion cannon." As Roberto's just like, "You gotta be kidding me right now. What next?" Not only is the ship going berserk, now there's a huge cannon? Oh, man. As he says, "Well, it's time to throw in the towel, guys. I'm good. I'm getting plastered before we die." But Wolfwood has other ideas as he walks up to them and says, "We're stopping both the ion cannon and this ship." As Roberto asks him, "Do you know how?" And he says, "Of course I freaking don't. Are you serious? But we'll make it happen with some guts and grit, baby." As they run off to go stop this. And as they're doing that, we just hear, "Why does this ship even have an ion cannon? This is a passenger ship." As Vash tells them, it was originally for destroying obstacles. The ship uses parts from the spacefaring age, after all. And it's here as they get to the cannon's control room and kick the door down, Roberto says, "Damn, this really was a spaceship at some point, huh?" And it's here with a bit of tinkering, Vash gets the control room back online for it. But as he tries to stop it, he says, "It's not working. I can't move the shaft." That's what she said. As he says, the only way now is to turn the ship or the cannon manually. As Roberto tells him, "You can't be serious." But Wolfwood says, "Fine, I'll do it." And as they run outside, Vash tells Wolfwood, "Alright, you deal with the cannon," as he goes to the control room and does a plan of his own. And when he gets to the control room, he does something pretty smart, actually. As we see, he takes the claws that are on the sand streamer itself and has them wrap around the cannon to try to hold it back somewhat. And after wrapping around it, we see they hook into the ground and will be a temporary stop measure for the ion cannon. And it's here as we transition back to the control room, we see that the ion cannon is still charging, as we see that Meryl was told that once we move the cannon, we want you to activate the trigger mechanism. No pressure at all, right? But it's here, Roberto says, "Let's go, newbie. I found a lifeboat. We can still make it," as he plans to get the hell out of there. As Meryl says, "What are you talking about? Are you serious right now?" As Roberto says, "We're not risking our lives. That was our deal, remember?" As he tells Meryl, "What's your job again? It's to survive and write an article about this. Stop trying to be a hero. We're both just normal people." As Meryl asks him, "You don't think they can move the cannon?" And he says, "Or stop the ship. Now let's go." As Roberto says, "Come on, newbie, that's an order here." But it's here as we see the cannon still increasing. Meryl says, "I'm sorry, Roberto. Go on without me." As he says, "You're a fool! You're gonna die here!" And she says, "I know this is stupid. So I won't blame anyone for running away. But me? I'm sick of it. I regret what happened in Genora Rock. If I would have held on to Tanis, he wouldn't have lost his arm. And his whole town got destroyed. But yeah, he lost an arm too. That sucks." And as we see Vash and Wolfwood physically trying to lift the cannon up, she says, "I've regretted it all this time. And if I run away now, I'll feel the exact same way. I'm staying right here." And I really like the fact that Meryl's stepping up right here and deciding to do what she believes is right in this instance. I like that a lot. It's good character development for her. But it's here as we transition back to Vash and Wolfwood, we see something really interesting. As we see they're trying to push the cannon back up, and Vash is leaving an indent into the cannon with his arm, as we see it's cracking along with his arm. As Vash tells him, "I'm sorry, Wolfwood." And he tells him, Are you really doing this right now?" As Vash says, "I guess there was something you wanted to protect more than anything else, huh?" As Wolfwood tells him, "Seriously, this is not the time right now. Save this for after everything works out, man." As we see the cannons about ready to fire. And it's here, somehow, some way, they actually push the cannon up. And it goes into the air as they say, "Now." And Meryl pulls the lever, and the cannon fires and hits nothing but air. As the cannon does a full arc in the air and comes all the way back behind them. And then explodes from the sheer pressure of the blast. Now, this scene is kind of silly that they did that. I can only assume that it was Vash that had a way of doing this with his arm and his power somehow. That had to be the only way. There's no way they're pushing up this giant ass cannon. Be real. Besides that, because once the cannon stopped, we see him actually looking at his arm that's actually glowing right now. But our situation hasn't improved that much because they're still heading towards the orphanage, as Wolfwood tells him, "I'll stop this ship by making it self-destruct." As Vash asks him, "What about the people on board?" And he tells him, "This isn't the time for that." As Vash swears that I can save the town and this ship. But Wolfwood tells him, "If you can't kill anyone, you can't save anyone either." But Vash insists that there is a way. And we will see that way pretty shortly. As Wolfwood tells him, fine, you have it your way, just for today. I guess I do owe you one after all. As he adds, but if the orphanage doesn't survive this, I'll hurt you so bad you'll wish you were dead before I kill you. You hear me? As Vash is like, oh, Wolfwood, you do care. As Wolfwood tells him, shut up, I'm the Punisher. I'm not like you. I'm Nicholas the Punisher. As we see our title card appear right then and there. And I kind of like this scene, I'll be honest. I think it's very fitting. And it's here as they're running through the ship trying to stop it. Vash tells him, you go to the engine room right now. As Wolfwood asks him, what are you going to do? But Vash says, just take care of the engine room, man. As he continues to run off. And it's here as we see where he's running off to. Things start getting a little wild. As he walks into the room with the plant in it. And with an extremely somber look on his face, he reaches out and says, I'm so sorry for this. As he closes his eyes and says, I need your help. As we see the plant start opening up. But we'll come back to this scene because we're going to transition to Wolfwood going to the engine room and everyone's in a panic. Everyone's desperately trying to stop this thing. As we see that the brakes are so superheated that none of them can touch this to turn it. But our boy Wolfwood's a little different as he dives headfirst into it, puts a jar of medicine in his mouth, grabs it, hands burning, and turns it. As we see the ship is braking as fast as it can as it gets within inches of the settlement, but stops, literally just like a movie. And with that, our crisis is averted. Or at least that's what we think it is. As all of a sudden, we see a sandstorm start forming around the ship. And as we transition back to Vash, we see some hands overlapping his from inside of the plant tank. And it's here as Meryl, Roberto, and Wolfwood are running around trying to find Vash. They find him in the plant room, and they are shocked at what they see. As we see Vash standing there, and we see that the plant has transformed into an entire living being. And as we see Vash turn around, they are shocked even more at what they see. As Vash turns around and we see this pattern over his body and his blank, lifeless eyes, as we realize that's the same pattern as the plants. And with that, our episode ends. And this is a wild ending to the episode. Like, what does this mean? Like, we know that from our first episode that Vash was in space. And he was in space dealing with the plants with knives and all that. And I very vaguely remember the finer details about what was happening up there, but it's crazy. This is a crazy revelation that he can apparently communicate with the plants. And after we saw knives and what knives can do, it's no wonder that Vash would have a similar power like that. But we don't know what this is, and we don't know what he's doing just yet. And I'm very curious to know exactly where we're going to go from here, because Vash is not human. That is very apparent after this episode. So I'm very curious to know what happens. But you guys let me know what you thought of this episode down below. We finally got a little bit of closure for Wolfwood this episode. We saved his orphanage, and we saved the day too. All in all, a fairly good episode, I would say. But until next time, guys, I hope you have a great day, week, month, and year. And until then, deuces and have a blessed day. I will see you guys next time. Deuces.